I just want my dough, and if they don't, then I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is hold up. I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is work. 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 15 in a union. 15 in a union. All I know is work. 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 I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is hold up. Hold up. Hold up. I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is hold up. All I know is work. 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 15 in a union. 15 in a union. All I know is work. All I know is work. All I know is work. That right? All I know is work. Let's switch our roles. You take our lives and live in them. I'ma make my billions of dollars off you and give you the minimum. You can raise the minimum wage, but still my funds is not to be played with. I ain't just assuming they got a union, then they can just go back and change it, right? Wrong. I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is hold up. I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is hold up. All I know is work. 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 15 in a union. 15 in a union. All I know is work. All I know is work. That right? All I know is work. Look, hey, I'ma get what I deserve. These people got some nerves. Got me working all of these hours and I'm still broke up on the first. Man, please, they can't tell us no. You can keep the favors. I just want my dough, and if they don't, then I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is hold up. I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is work. 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 15 in a union. 15 in a union. All I know is work. 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 I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is hold up. Hold up. Hold up. I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is hold up. All I know is work. 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 15 in a union. 15 in a union. All I know is work. All I know is work. All I know is work. Yeah, right. All I know is work. Let's switch our roles. You take our lives and live in them. I'ma make my billions of dollars off you and give you the minimum. You can raise the minimum wage, but still my funds is not to be played with. I ain't just assuming if it got a union, then they can just go back and change it, right? Wrong, I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is hold up. I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is hold up. All I know is work. 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 All I know is work.
Hello, everybody. This is Reverend Dr. William Joseph Barber, the second president of Repairs to the Breach and co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, joined by co-chair Reverend Dr. Liz Theo Harris, who's also the executive director of the Kairos Center, and thousands upon thousands of people all around the country and even around the world. We are launching today 14 weeks of Moral Monday. 14 weeks of Moral Monday. We are launching for an agenda for the healing of the nation. We cannot save the soul, heal the soul of the nation without healing the sickness in the body and addressing the 5 interlocking injustices of systemic racism in all of its forms, systemic poverty, ecological devastation / healthcare denial, war economy, and this false moral narrative, religious national. Now, you all know how we do it on Moral Monday. We're inviting everybody. While we're in COVID, we're doing it on social media. We got some announcements today because it's time for us to break out a little bit, but in a safe way. You'll hear more about that. But this is about building a platform from the states up. Because we understand, yes, more poor and low wealth people voted this time than ever before. 55% of poor and low wealth people voted in the new administration. 6 million more poor and low wealth people voted in this election than in 2016. You contacted over 3.1 million voters who turned out. But we know we must not only raise our votes, we must raise our voices. We cannot just go home now and sit down. We must push for a 100-day agenda that truly addresses the issues that can call for the healing of the nation. And what do we say? If you want to heal the nation, protect us and respect us. And today we start with 2 critical issues: just COVID relief from the bottom up, that makes sure everybody from the bottom up, whether you're able or disabled, regardless of race, creed, color, sexuality, starts from the bottom up. And then an economic recovery that begins with 15 and a union, living wages and a union. We must do this if we're going to heal the nation. Somebody say with me, respect us and protect us. Why 14 weeks for 100 days? Well, first of all, we know before COVID, there were 140 million people in poverty and low wealth before COVID. Don't tell us that pain just started. The pain was just intensified and the pain was opened up, but the pain existed before COVID. 250,000 people dying a year, 700 a day from poverty and low wealth. Why are we having 14 weeks to raise our voices, both in the state houses and among your Congress people and Senate and on Capitol Hill every way we can, including via social media? Because if we raise the living wage to 39 million families, 49 million would automatically be lifted. Billions of dollars will be placed in the economy. 62 million people who currently live on less than a living wage would be impacted. Why must we do this? Because 1 in 7 people in this country right now, the wealthiest country in the world, do not know how they're going to eat. They don't have enough food. Only 39% of Americans can afford $1,000 emergency, $1,000 emergency. That's the reality that we are facing in this country, and it has increased since COVID. We know that before COVID, there were over 80 million people that did not have health care or were underinsured. We must change this now. We can't wait until after COVID. We must change it now. We know that corporations, they gave them $4 to $6 trillion. Some of it they didn't even vote on it, just ran it through the Treasury Department, the past administration, and then there are some now that want to say 1.9, which is too low, but it's more than it was. Is too much. Is too much for the people. We say no to that. We must say protect, respect us, and protect us if you're serious about healing the nation. We have protected the country. Poor and low wealth people and workers have been the essential workers. They've been the ones on the front line, and we cannot be the first ones impacted, the first ones harmed, the first ones to die, and then the last ones to be recovered. No, the goal that we're facing now, it's not about being bipartisan. It's about being true to our deepest moral values, being true to our deepest constitutional values. Yes, if people want to be bipartisan, but we know that we are dealing with the Republican Party right now. This is not partisanism. This is just the truth, that they don't compromise. They bully. When they had power, they wouldn't compromise. They just bully. And bullies cannot be allowed to continue to beat down the people, beat down poor and low wealth people, whether they're in Appalachia or Alabama, California, or the Carolinas. People had power. They could have used it. We know there's no such thing now as a so-called moderate Republican. That's a 1950s, 1960s thing. And moderate simply means I'm against QAnon, but I'm also against healthcare. That's not moderate, that's extreme. And we say to Democrats, you cannot win a vote and not use a vote. You cannot be given power and then not use power. That's extreme too. Coretta Scott King said apathy and a refusal to address public policy violence is a form of violence in and of itself. And so what we're saying is the truth of the matter is in order to compromise, you have to have the same belief in the promise, promise. But you can't compromise with people that don't believe in a promise that would lift all people from the bottom, that would lift poor and low wealth people. We cannot do that. And so here we are. And in this moment, we are going to push 100 days, 14 straight weeks, tomorrow, Monday. Go tell somebody to respect us, you must protect us. Healing the nation, we know the medicine, we know how to address the sickness and the body that can lift everybody. So we invite you right now to the first of the 100-day, 14 weeks of National Moral Monday from the Poor People's Campaign. You're going to hear some guests today. You're going to hear from workers today. You're going to hear the truth from Ms. Shalley, our public policy director. You're going to get instructions today. We're going to light up some phones today to McConnell and to Schumer, because when we hear people say, wait, we've waited long enough. We waited behind the business. Says we waited behind the banks. We waited behind the corporation. We've waited trying to see our loved ones when they died and couldn't get in, and we just had to think about what it was like for them to die alone. Well, waiting time is over now. We need action, and we need it now. People are hurting, people are dying, and it does not have to be. And it's time for us to raise our moral voices like never before. And so here we are at the beginning of the first of 14 Mass Moral Monday gatherings nationally, sponsored by the Poor People's Campaign. And just so folk are clear about it, we didn't just start getting involved. We didn't just start fighting for from the bottom up. We didn't just start demanding just COVID relief. We didn't just start 15 in the union. You know, some politicians picked it up, but long before they picked it up, Fight for 15 and other groups and Poor People's Campaign in the trenches, we were pushing and pushing and pushing. So check this video out, because it lets you know what we have done. We're not going to do less, we're going to do more, was because we demand, if you respect us, then protect us, or better yet, protect us by respecting us. Drop the video, and then when the video is over, we'll come back and we'll hear from our director, attorney Shally Gupta Barnes.
Of America. You can't separate civil rights from workers' rights, and so we stand together. The reality is the fastest growing jobs in the United States are the lowest paid. That ain't right. And that's why fast food workers are joining together to demand $15 an hour and the right to form a union without retaliation. Of fast food workers are on some form of public assistance. Now, it's amazing that sometimes those who are wealthy, they howl against public assistance, but then they hire people and pay them such a low wage, they have to get on government assistance. And then they say if they pay you more, it's going to cost more. And they scare people, like the public say, well, if we pay them more, they're going to have to pay more for a hamburger. Well, first of all, if you had to pay a dime or 15 cents more for a hamburger so that fellow human beings could have a living wage, we ought to pay it. But the fact of the matter is they have enough profit that if they paid you a living wage, they would still be profitable. Franklin Delano Roosevelt said this in the 1930s. Don't you ever let a greedy person making money from your labor tell you that you don't need a living wage. But you need to understand, you all don't just represent fighting for a living wage and 15. You represent the threshold of a third Reconstruction. Y'all don't hear what I'm saying? The truth is that living wages raise productivity, that living wages decrease turnover, and that living wages builds jobs. When you pay people more, it's good for them and it's good for the economy. It's good for America. Any form of work that doesn't pay a living wage is a pseudo form of slavery. And for those who tell us we want too much too soon, it took us 400 years to get from 0 to 725. I know you don't think we're going to wait another 400 years. And when you got righteous anger and courage, then you can have hope. Because you know, as my sister said, if you fight long enough and hard enough and loving enough and strong enough, a change will come.
We know that from history, when those most impacted by injustice band together with moral leaders, clergy, activists, all people of conscience, that is when we can make a change. That is when our country gets better for everyone, not just a select few. We are here because we're going to win labor rights. We are here because we're going to win living wages. And the right to thrive, not just barely survive. What do we want? Living wages. When do we want it?
Now, we will fight until you respect our dignity. We will fight until we loose the bands of wickedness. We will fight until the laborer gets what they deserve. We will fight until we can know that this America is America for everybody. This is our land too. This is our home too. We will fight until the American dream belongs to all of us and not some of us. We will fight. We will fight. We will fight. And not only will we fight, we will win.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shally Gupta-Barnes. I'm the policy director of the Poor People's Campaign. And as we launch the season of Moral Mondays to heal the nation and remember where we've come from when what's brought us to this point, it's important to remember what we're fighting for and why. As Reverend Barber said earlier, before the pandemic, there were 140 million people who were poor or one emergency away from being poor. And for the last decade, we've seen an expansion of low-wage jobs, precarious jobs, especially and women and people of color have been disproportionately moved into those jobs. And we're here in many ways and many reasons because of failed policies and politics that prioritized corporations, that prioritized Wall Street and the wealthy, and systems of violence and pain. And then the pandemic set forth this wave of emergencies that pushed many millions of people over the edge. So last year, following an historic election that was determined in part because millions of poor and low-income and essential people turned out, we released a set of 14 policy priorities for this administration and this Congress. It drew on the demands we've been making for years that are centered around the 140 million, that are centered around concrete steps that can and must be taken to set us on a course of true healing. And I encourage you all to read those 14 priorities online, download the PDF, study them, share them, because these are the moral policies that can build us back better and stronger than we were before. And they're all grounded in strong and sound economics. It took decades of policies to bring us to this point. We're going to need a long-term comprehensive approach, more than one bill or two bills, to make sure that everybody is in and nobody is out. And that begins with these first 100 days. And at the top of our list is just and comprehensive COVID relief that prioritizes frontline, essential workers, low-wage workers, and those who are most vulnerable in this pandemic, especially the poor. That means, first of all, monitoring and collecting data on how this pandemic is affecting and impacting these sectors of our society, and then implementing equitable, data-driven relief in the form of treatment and vaccines and whatever is necessary to get to the long-term injustices in housing and healthcare and jobs and income that brought us here. There's a recent study that showed that if we had policies that kept people in their homes with running water, we would have reduced our deaths and infections by tens of thousands of people. So we need to make sure we can all stay in our homes and have running water and heat and light and communications and good food, regardless of where we come from, who we are, who we love, or where we live. We need money for our states. We need immigrant reform. We need our local governments to have the resources necessary to meet all of our needs and to focus our nation's abundant resources on this population and on the 140 million. So over the season of Moral Mondays, we're going to lift up these 14 priorities and the struggles and organizing that is happening to make them real, to push Congress and lawmakers and our elected officials to fight for legislation that doesn't compromise on the backs of the poor or give some of us health care and some of us not. We all need legislation that lifts us up, all of us, moving forward together. And this week, We're focusing on the struggle around living wages for 15 in a union for all low-wage workers, for all tipped workers, for the federal government to raise and set a new floor for minimum wages that lifts up our economy from the bottom. We know the majority of these workers are women. We know they're raising children and caring for their families on poverty wages, which means a lot of them are working multiple jobs around the clock and still not able to make ends meet. Because even working full-time on a minimum wage job, which is $7.25 an hour, let alone $2 and change for tipped workers, you can't afford a 2-bedroom apartment in any place in this country. Now, when we looked into the economic impacts of a $15 an hour wage, it was literally life-saving. It would reduce the number of lives taken by suicide every year. And if we passed 15 an hour immediately, nearly 50 million people would see $320 billion in their pockets. That money would go right back into the economy. We saw this during the pandemic, when $600 a week was circulated back through unemployment insurance, and that extra income was supporting 5 million jobs in the economy, not taking them away. And if you break that down, $600 a week turns out to about $15 an hour at full time. So this is why we're here. We're here to listen to low-wage and tipped workers organizing across the country, coming together in the kind of fusion organizing that has been the bedrock of this campaign and the history of change in this country. So I'll stop now and turn it back over to Reverend Liz and Reverend Rod Stevens.
Thank you so much. So powerful, Charlotte, for giving us, because we always want to be a movement that knows what we're talking about. You know, we want to know, and we're going to resist the lies that say, if you do this, it's actually going to hurt. We're talking about investment for the uplift of this society, but from the bottom up. Now we're going to go to Reverend Dr. Liz to come on remarks, and she's going to talk to you, but also talk to you about how to take action, because we need folk taking action right now. We need to fill up every line that Schumer and McConnell have demanding action now on a full just COVID relief, full just, and on $15 living wage now, immediately for everybody. Don't separate anybody out, everybody in, nobody out. Reverend Dr. Liz.
Thank you so much, Reverend Barber, and for everyone for joining us here today. As you said, I'm so pleased to be with everybody on this, the anniversary of the start of the sit-in movement that started on February 1st, 1960. And we know that we're here today because we must push Democrats and Republicans and independents to immediately enact a living wage of $15 an hour, covering all minimum wage workers. We need to include tip workers. We need to strong, expanded union rights. And we definitely need a full, just COVID relief. So today, we celebrate the sit-in movement, and this week, our nation celebrates Rosa Parks' birthday. On Thursday, February 4th, it would have been her 108th birthday. And we have a lot to learn. We have a lot to learn in this movement still from Mrs. Rosa Parks about the need to keep up fighting, about the struggle and pushing no matter who is in power, about ensuring that indeed, as Reverend Barber just said, everybody has to be in, nobody can be left out. And about this interconnection of racial justice and police violence and poverty and living wages and healthcare and the environment, and about all of society needing to organize around the needs of the poor and of the marginalized and lifting people up. So I'm thinking about a quote of hers today, and I think it's really appropriate for the call-in that we're engaged in right now. This moment obviously requires bold action around racism and COVID relief and living wages and immigrant rights and healthcare, and indeed the right to thrive, not just survive. And Mrs. Parks said, as she was organizing, and her whole life was spent radically organizing. She said, I don't believe in gradualism, or whatever is to be done for the better should take forever to do it. So I just want us to think about that quote today. This is not a time for gradualism. We have to promote this Raise the Wage Act. We need full COVID relief, and we need everybody that is gathering online today with us and throughout this week to call your senators and urge them to pass the Raise the Wage Act, but also to pass the fact that we need full just COVID relief. So I'm going to ask LaMonique to pull up the screen so that everyone can see. Reverend Barbara said that we opened this Mass Moral Monday because we're doing a massive call-in to Senate leaders Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, and also to our state senators. So you can see when you go to poorpeoplescampaign.org, you can click on the link for the event that's taking place right now. And then you can click on this Call Your Senator. And then you press that link and you see a little bit of what we're talking about today. You put in your name, you put in your email, you put in your phone number, you put in your address, and your address is key because we want you to call your senators and urge them that they have to call, that they have to pass this full COVID relief, that they have to do right by low-wage essential workers all across this country. And so it'll come up. Here we have Montana. These are the representatives of Montana. And then you press this little link. It says make the call. When you press that link, what's going to come up is a whole talking points so that you know both for your own self, for your family, for your community, why we're making these calls, but also so that you can follow these talking points to tell your senator that you're standing here with the Poor People's Campaign, that a poverty minimum wage of $7.25, it hasn't increased in way too long, that people are working these low-wage jobs, and that's in particularly hurting, poor families and children. That actually you can know what the impact in your state is of raising the minimum wage to $15 immediately, not over years, not over time, but immediately, and how many people would be impacted in your state. What we know is that immediately more than 40 million low-wage workers would have their lives improved, and that would put more than $328 billion into the hands of workers and families that would circulate across the entire economy and would lift up everybody. And we've been having a lot of conversation, as folks know, in this pandemic about calling frontline workers essential, but not having folks get those essentials, right? So anyway, you can do this. We need you to do this. We need you to pass it on to others. And then once you have actually called your senators, there's another link. You go back and you make sure you call Schumer and make sure you call McConnell, because they have a responsibility to serve the entire nation as the majority and the minority leaders of the Senate. And we need them right now to make sure that we raise wages, that we include all workers, including tip workers, that it happens immediately, and that we need a full COVID relief. So get on those lines. You can do it while you still tune in to this powerful Moral Monday program we have today. As we say in our work, somebody's hurting our workers, our restaurant workers, our home health care workers, our fast food workers, our essential workers. Somebody's been hurting poor and Black and brown and Native and poor white people, the uninsured, the underinsured, the unemployed, the caregivers, the immigrants, the homeless. It's gone on for far too long. This is not a time for gradualism. We need to act now. And we're not going to be silent anymore. So please make those calls. And then also, please tune in to these powerful leaders in states across the country that are a part of this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, including in states where we need those senators to enact this full COVID relief. We need those senators to pass living wages now for everybody. And so we're going to keep on moving in this program, and we're going to bring on some of those leaders now.
That's right. And Liz, we've got a call right now. Because right now there are senators trying to say, let's do half, let's do less. Let me listen, y'all. We have to take all the pain you felt when you've seen people die, all the hurt you've seen, all the concern, all the love, and mix it all together and make these calls, starting with Schumer and McConnell. This is ridiculous to be playing like this with people's lives. It's just ridiculous. It is utterly immoral when we talk about that poor and low wealth people were the first to be affected. They were the first to be called back to work to save the economy, the first to die alone, the first in so many ways. We can't be the first, the last in relief and the last in recovery. It hurts not only poor and low wealth people, it hurts the whole nation. So we need all your love, all your power, all your moral instincts, all of it. And let's get on these calls and make them today, Schumer and McConnell first, because they could agree right now and stop all this foolishness. And you know, like I know, if COVID was running through the United States Senate, the way it's running through poor and low wealth communities, the way it's running through, there would be an immediate automatic action. No less can be expected. And then when it comes to these wages things, no index. Somebody said the other day, well, maybe we can index it. People in Mississippi don't need $15 an hour. People in Montana don't need $15. They may need it in California. No indexing. No waiting another 10 years. This was first proposed in 63 at the March on Washington. 57 years too late. No giving corporations. They didn't have to wait. They got money they didn't even ask for. In the trillions. And so now we must move, and we got to hear now some special folk that we have that Liz is not going to be introducing to you. I'm going to introduce some of our special guests later, but Liz is going to introduce these powerful people, beginning in that state of West Virginia. And I know West Virginians. My granddad's from West Virginia. West Virginians don't play. They don't play with their money. They don't play with their health care. They love you enough to tell you wrong, and they love people enough to fight for it. So, Liz, it's on you to bring on these powerful workers from West Virginia and Montana as they speak to the entire nation and literally the world.
Well, thank you so much. So indeed, these are the real voices we want to be hearing. I'm going to bring on Pamela Garrison, as well as Jean Evans-Moore. Both are from West Virginia and are doing powerful organizing in that state, and are going to tell us more about why we need a full just COVID relief and why we need to raise wages immediately. So thanks so much for being here with us.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jean Evans-Moore, and I'm one of the tri-chairs in West Virginia at the Poor People's Campaign. We are here today as proud West Virginia citizens to say that we need $15 an hour, and we need it right now. Now, look, we're through asking. We are demanding that Senator Manchin vote to pass a $15 federal minimum wage. West Virginia needs $15, and we also need strong unions for all the workers. And we're not going to let Congress pit the tipped workers against the untipped workers. My buddy Pam Garrison is here with me, and she's here to tell us why West Virginia needs $15 now, more than ever. Pam?
Hello, everyone. I'm Pam from Fayette County, West Virginia. I've been a minimum wage worker my whole life. That's why I have to speak up on this issue. I've done 2 or 3 people's jobs for one pay, minimum wage. And I've struggled. I've stood in food lines. I've struggled to pay the utility bills, to keep them from one cutoff notice to the next cutoff notice. And the pandemic has made things worse. Minimum wage workers, we don't have money to put back into put away for a stormy day. We keep our change to roll to keep till payday comes again. And in 2014, West Virginia legislatures gave us $1.50 added to the pitiful $7.25 to make it $8.25 in West Virginia. And we're one of the poorest states in the nation. And since I've got some statistics for Liz, that these statistics makes me mad. It makes me sad. In West Virginia, 55% of our children live in low-wage working households. 57.6% of low-wage workers in West Virginia make at or below minimum wage. If we had a minimum wage raise, 75.8% of West Virginians would be lifted up out of poverty. And that was before the pandemic ever even hit. You know, I'm not just calling Senator Manchin and Senator Capito, I'm not just calling on them, I'm calling them out. I am demanding that our kids have food, shelter, that to help our whole state, besides our whole nation, lift us up out of poverty. And when you lift people up out of poverty, it helps everybody come out of it to do better in America. And so I just want y'all to join us and call your senators and get mad about this, people. This is unjust.
That's right.
We have to stand up and stand together and let our voices be heard. We are tired of being used, abused, and trampled. And I've done this my whole life and just struggled. And I know how people are struggling now. I talk to women all over the state who are showing me $300, $400 electric bills right now, trying to stay warm in the mountains. And so this is survival for us. And it's been, like you said, Reverend Barbara, far too long. You look how many years. And it don't just wear on your body. It's your mind. It's your nerves. It's every part of you that struggles. That's right. And so I want y'all to know I am West Virginia. I am standing up, and I'm here with you.
Amen. Amen. Powerful.
I just found out that Senator Schumer's, they shut their lines down so people can't make messages. But listen, you keep calling, it'll click over, it'll move over. But I wanted to say something, Pamela, thank you for telling people it's all right to anger. The word anger means and grief, or to be upset about this. And I called your senator personally and talked to him. But I want to know from you and Jean and Jean and you and Jean, can we count on that you all are not going to let Senator Manchin and your other senator rest? They need to be in their ear every day. They need to hear your passion. They need to see your tears. You know, I'm just so sick and tired. I was called one day and somebody said, stop being emotional. I said, what do you mean stop being emotional? Have you seen people's pain? Have you seen them hurt? Have you seen my emotion is my love, right? And it's time out. You know, we see people get all emotional when they talk about the military. They get all emotional when they sing the national anthem. Well, you know, that's all right. But your deepest emotion should be directed at those things that are going to help fellow human beings. Right. And they're not going to separate tip workers and regular, and they're not going to separate black folk from white folk and brown folk. And we've played those games far too long, and it's over. It is over, and it's over with us. I just had to say, I'm sorry, ladies. You know, I'm part Pentecostal. I start amen, and I know it's your time, but you know, I get wrapped up. I'll go back now on mute. I'm sorry.
No, it's right. It's right. Well, Pamela and Jean just told us the truth. And now we're going to move from West Virginia, where we know that they're going to stay organized and stay pushing the pressure on, to Montana. And I want to introduce Reverend Danielle Rogers, who's out of Bozeman, Montana, one of our newer Poor People's Campaign coordinating committees. And we're so excited about the work that's going on there. But how wages and the housing crisis have been impacting your community, and why we need this full COVID relief, why we need to raise wages now, why we have to protect workers' rights, and why we have to lift from the bottom. So, Reverend Danielle, it's so powerful to have you with us.
It's wonderful to be here with all of you. I am so grateful to be here and to share what's happening in Montana. So again, my name is Reverend Danielle Rogers, and I live in Bozeman, Montana. It's a small city. It's located in the beautiful Rocky Mountains. It's home to Bridger Ski Resort, Montana State University, and it's one of the fastest growing cities in the country. It's top best place to live in several publications for its recreational activities and low crime rates. But behind all that lies a community really split in two. Bozeman was once a rural cowboy town. Houses were inexpensive, and families could rely on one income to live comfortably. But this has changed. And in the last decade, rich out-of-towners have bought homes, raising property values by 40%. And low-wage jobs don't pay enough to keep up with the increases of costs of living and housing. This has created a massive housing crisis. Our legislators have struggled to meet the needs of the poor, and we have failed them. We currently have 5 or 6 apartment complexes that use HUD funding. But I just found out that one complex leasing agreement ends this year. And if it's sold for current market value, families will have to find new places to live. The average waiting list is 3 to 5 years. Now, our average winter temperature is 12 degrees in the winter, and we don't have a homeless shelter that's open 12 months out of the year. Instead, it's open from November to March. Spring weather in Montana is very cold, and snowfalls comes into May. Since COVID-19, the Warming Center had to close early last spring because they couldn't adhere to the CDC recommendations. I work in ministry with youth and children, and we have seen an increase in the need for support from the community as they have lost their jobs to COVID, or their rent has increased, and they cannot afford to keep their basic necessities. Some churches work with Family Promise, an organization that uses faith facilities to house families until they can get into permanent housing. But on average, we've had 2 to 3 families stay for 1 week quarterly, but this has increased to 6 families in the last month. I have had homeless youth within my faith community, and it is heartbreaking. As churches, we do the best we can, but our financial contributions are dwindling because of COVID-19. We are not able to meet in person. And our community relies on churches to fill the gap, and we don't have the resources. Knowing families have to pitch a tent in a local park or park at Walmart in below zero weather, it's inhumane and it's unacceptable. And this is why Montana is demanding a $15 minimum wage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It really is immoral and wrong, right? We live in a nation where we have 5 abandoned housing units for every homeless person there is, and yet you have people pitching tents, as you said, in the cold of winter. Does it not have to be this way? That's what these 14 policy priorities show, and that's surely what raising a minimum wage, having full just COVID relief is. So I have one more a powerful leader out of Virginia. I want to introduce Ms. Thomasine Wilson, who's out of Richmond, a home health care worker there, a SEIU member, and it's so powerful to have you here with us today to share what's going on and what we all need to do.
Well, thank you. My name is Thomasine Wilson. I've been a union member of SEIU Virginia 512 since 2008, and I'm a home care worker and have been for over 20 years. I provide service to seniors and people with disabilities. My work allows them to stay in their home in a familiar place and continue the life that they have built for themselves. And even though I enjoy the work I do, the wages we earn do not reflect the care I provide. And even though I enjoy this work, often I'm unable to take off from work because I don't get any paid sick leave or anything. So right now in Virginia, we were set to earn $15 an hour. And guess what? That's not going to be for 5 years from now, in 2026. That is not enough to meet our own basic needs right now.
That's right.
2026, I need the needs taken care of now. As a result, we struggle with housing. We are forced to work multiple jobs. And we're not compensated even for the mileage of going from between different clients. We depend on the government for assistance for our rent and utility bills. And even for our medications, we don't even have health care. So we're not able to pay for our health insurance without $15 an hour. So many of us live in survival mode daily. That's a struggle. Home care workers cannot wait this 5 years, especially as we continue to fight against this pandemic. The issue will only become more urgent or as more people age and come into retirement. Our nation is going to need more home care workers to meet the rise in demand for elderly care. And so that's why I'm also fighting for an opportunity for all home care workers to join a union. That means we not only be paid $15 an hour, but we also provide us with training, which we so very much need. And so we can keep up with the evolving needs of our clients and stay qualified to give care. And as our basic needs, like for our basic needs, like paid sick leave, and not choose between keeping the lights on or taking care of ourselves. Now, by working together, we have won victories like hazard pay, PPE, and overtime pay for home care workers. And even though we won that, we still need more. But now it's time we earn a wage that reflects and respects the work we do. And we need it, not later, but now. And that's why I'm fighting for $15 an hour and a union. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We heard it. We heard why we have to keep on organizing, keep on fighting, and why we need everybody on this call to be making calls. Call Schumer, call McConnell, tell them we cannot wait. We need 15 and a union now. We need full COVID relief. We need all of the 14 priorities of the Poor People's Campaign, and we need it all now. So thank you so much. I'm going to pass it back to you, Reverend Barber. We have some other powerful leaders that are joining with us today. We know it does not have to be this way. In this pandemic alone, more than $1 trillion has come into the hands and the pockets of the richest in this nation. Overnight, the Federal Reserve, bailed out Wall Street to the tune of trillions of dollars, right? We can raise wages. It will benefit our whole society. We can expand healthcare. It will benefit our whole society. And that's why we're going to organize and make it so. So thank you so much, and turn it to you, Reverend Barber.
And Liz, and I think about that, the love in me connected with the truth that billionaires have made nearly $1 trillion. And my sister, poor Thomasina back up, because what she just said, she said that, and I want y'all to hear this as you're making these calls and making these commitments to these 14 weeks. I think I heard her say, I'm a healthcare home care worker, and I'm taking care of other people, but can't afford insurance. Did y'all hear the ugliness in those two things going together? That's why we can't let anything break this movement up. We can't fight each other. We got to stay focused. Here's a woman that said, I'm caring for other folk, and they are probably getting her to care for them because they have some form of insurance that pays, but then she doesn't have insurance. And then somebody says, wait, 5 years? No. I don't care if it is a Democrat. I don't care if it's a black member of Congress. I heard a black member of Congress say one time, we just need to index it. No, it's time out for all that foolishness. People need this. We must do it now. And here's the other thing, as I bring on two of our guests, and then is that, y'all, we've got to start saying, wait a minute, you're not going to keep doing this in our name. See, that's the thing we have to remember. The government operates in our name. It's just like when the government takes somebody to trial, it's the state of North Carolina versus Liz, right? This is being done in our name. Government of the people, for the people, in our name. And I'm not signing off anymore. That's like signing a blank check and giving it to somebody, and they take it and give it to all the wrong people. You can't do this anymore in our name.
Yes.
This is our government, our country. And we can't have this. And that is why we made a conscious decision. We heard through the grapevine, because we got people everywhere, y'all. I want y'all to know the Tomorrow Monday movement and the Poor People's Campaign, we got folk everywhere, just like these other two ladies got people everywhere. And then we keep our ear to the ground. And we heard that there was this plan. And the plan was they were going to pit the workers against the tip workers to try to divide it up and get us fighting each other. And then they were going to slow this thing down. And we said, oh, wait a minute. We were born at night, but not last night. You're not playing that game again. We've already been through the white, black, brown. No, sir. So we said, we know what we do. We got media on today, all over this country. We want you to hear. So we said, let's get my dear friend and our dear sister, warrior among warriors, Mary Kay Henry with SEIU, and get our dear friend Saru, who's with One Fair Wage and Poor People's Campaign. Bam, we all coming together and we letting folk know that this is what democracy looks like, and you're not dividing us. And they have a big announcement. Saru has a big announcement about next week, something we're going to do we've never done before, because y'all, it's time now. Our public health officials have given us some leeway. It's time now to double mask and get off some of the social media and go back in the street just a little bit protected wise. And Saru's going to talk to us about that. But look, Mary Kay Henry and one of the workers from SEIU, another one, and our dear Saru, come on, Jara man, come on and just talk to your family. This is your family, the Poor People's Campaign. We are all family. We are all fighting in the same direction. Are they there?
We're here, Reverend Barber. I think Saru's going to kick us off.
All right.
Oh, I thought you were going to kick us off, Mary Kay, but okay.
I'm happy to, whatever you want.
Let's just kick. And make sure we kick injustice. How it don't matter.
That's right. That's right.
Kicking.
Thank you so much, Reverend Barber. And I'm so proud to stand with my sister, Saru Jaraman, as you said, the president of One Fair Wage, because when we fight for 15, we mean 15 for everybody, no exceptions. We will not let tipped workers get carved out. Everybody needs the same minimum wage. And I want to thank my sister, Thomasine. She's another one who's not going to let anybody get left behind. It's wrong that home care and child care workers were written out of the original laws in the 30s because those jobs were done by primarily Black and brown women. And so they were excluded from minimum wage, from Social Security, from the Fair Labor Standards Act, from the ability to join unions. And we're not standing for that anymore. We're saying that every care worker also deserves to be brought into the fullness of respect and dignity for that work. And I stand with Thomasine in that incredible demand. I stand with the sisters, Jean and Pamela from West Virginia, and your righteous indignation. We are demanding 15 now. We're not going to wait, and we're going to make that crystal clear to every elected official in DC and everywhere in this nation. I stand with Reverend Danielle from Montana because I agree it is inhumane and unacceptable. The pain and suffering and inequality that people are enduring that's only been made worse by the COVID pandemic. And I stand with the co-chairs, you, Reverend Barber, and Reverend Liz Theo Harris, and the Poor People's Campaign. On this anniversary of the sit-in movement in Greensboro, we walk in the tradition of those who use nonviolent protest to make it crystal clear that we are making change now. We're not going to wait any longer. And that's why I'm so thrilled to join this first Moral Monday kickoff of the next 100 days. SEIU members will be with Moral Monday every Monday, the 2 million of us, and the Fight for 15 and union leaders from coast to coast that are demanding loud and clear, respect us, protect us, and pay us. A $15 minimum wage is the single most powerful measure we have to reduce racial and economic inequality. It would boost the incomes of 32 million Americans, including 25% of Latino workers and 30% of Black workers. And we did the work to elect these new leaders into office. And now it's time to push and hold corporations and every elected official accountable to those who work for a living. And that's why I'm proud to introduce someone who's been a leader in the fight for 15, Bridget Hughes. She's a mother, a wife, and a fierce fighter for justice. Bridget is organizing with her coworkers at McDonald's in Kansas City to win $15 an hour.
And we know that Kansas City is one of the cities that passed a $15 minimum wage, but their state legislature took it away from them. And that's why she's fighting to make it the law of the land at the national level. My sister, Bridget.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bridget Hughes. I am a McDonald's worker here in Kansas City, Missouri, and I am a wife and a mother of 3. My husband is also a low-wage worker at a gas station here in Kansas City. Even with both incomes, we have faced homelessness. We have faced not being able to put food on the table. We have dealt with various health problems that each of us have had. We don't get any health insurance or pay time off from our jobs, so that makes it extremely difficult to be able to care for ourselves. In Kansas City, for one adult and one child, according to MIT, the living wage is $23 an hour. So $15 an hour is a bare minimum. It's not going to make us rich by far, but it will guarantee that we are able to put food on the table, that we are able to put money back into the economy and take care of our bills, keep a stable home. Especially during a time right now with us dealing with this pandemic, I've seen so many families that have been uprooted from their homes and now dealing with homelessness. The shelters are at maximum capacity here in Kansas City, so there's not any room for these people to go or anywhere for people to feel safe. So even working full time, we're still dealing with the same things that we was dealing with before the pandemic. And now the pandemic, like Reverend Barber had mentioned earlier, has intensified the situations that people are left in now. And it's a shame. It's a shame to know that we have workers who are working for companies that are making billions of dollars in profit, and yet we go home and don't know if we're going to be able to feed our children. We don't know if we're going to have a warm place to sleep tonight. We don't know if when we get sick next week, if we're going to be able to afford to see a doctor. And it's shameful. I work for McDonald's, which is the second largest employer in the world. So we're talking billions of dollars in profits yearly, and yet you tell me you can't pay me $15 an hour? No, that makes no sense to me. Currently, my daughter has recently contracted COVID-19 virus, so we were quarantined for quite a while, as well as trying to maintain her health. Now we're dealing with how are we going to pay rent this month? How are we going to have food on the table? How am I going to keep the lights on? So it just makes it so much more stressful.
She'll be right back. It's a little technical. Mary Kate, we're so thankful that this dear sister, and the power of what she shared.
And our legislators and our government to pass this bill now. We need this now. We've been needing this. But it's definitely very important that we have it now while dealing with this pandemic, as well as a path for home health care workers, for fast food workers, for janitors and airport workers, any low-wage worker to be able to obtain access to have a union, because the union is what's going to protect what we do win. So it's time for us to get this going now, and we need everyone to continue getting on those phones and calling our senators. I know I will be blowing up Mr. Blunt's phone here in Kansas City, Missouri, to make sure they taking away from us like it was before. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my dear sister. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And not only thank you for the clarity for Mary Kay and what you all put on the table. I want everybody to hear why you got to make these calls. They passed it in Kansas.
They did, Reverend Barber.
They took it from them.
That's right.
The same people that when we passed voting rights, they didn't take it at the state level. It has to be federal. We can't wait any longer.
Yeah.
I need to hear that all over the country, all over the nation. In Birmingham, they did the same thing in Birmingham, Alabama. They passed it in the city, and the legislature said no. So this must come federally. It must be the law of the land, just like the 64 Civil Rights Act, just like the Voting Rights Act must be the law of the land, and it must take effect immediately. People can't survive another 5, 6, 7 years. They've already waited long enough. And notice, y'all, across the country, as I love what Mary Kay said, listen, you cannot talk about racial equity and not talk about 15 in the union and living wages. You can't. It's impossible to say, I care about dealing with racial disparities and racial equity, and you don't deal with these issues. You can't say you care about workers and essential workers without doing this. And the folk that have the power cannot allow the bullies, the people who, once they lose at the state level by the voters, they then turn around and go to the state legislatures. The days of the bully politics is over. We need the politics of building and lifting up the people. And I believe when you got the power, you use the power. We've seen what mean folk will do with power. Democrats, now we need to see what you can do with power for good and for righteousness. And we're here to say, we're giving our friends a backbone, and we're saying to our adversary, you won't win this. We have to have it now. Mary Kay, thank you so much. SEIU, and just always together. Only thing Liz and I are mad about is your background looks better than ours. But we're going to work on that. Saru, I know you're ready. And you got an announcement. You got a call for us. Listen up, PPC all over. Saru, come on.
Thank you so much, Reverend Barber. It's great to be with you and Reverend Liz and everybody at Poor People's Campaign and Mary Kay and SEIU. Always great to be with all of you. I want to give you all a very quick background on one part of the minimum wage that often gets cut out, which is the sub-minimum wage for tipped workers. Many of you know that the overall minimum wage is too low, $7.25. The sub-minimum wage for tipped workers is absurdly low. It's $2.13 an hour, and it's been that way for 31 years. It's a literal legacy of slavery. The first tipped workers in the United States to not get a wage were newly freed Black people who, at emancipation, the restaurant industry wanted to be able to hire them, not pay them anything, and have them live entirely on tips. So the idea of a $2 wage comes as a direct legacy of slavery in the United States of America, and it's time for it to go. Today, 70% of tipped workers are women, mostly waitresses working in IHOPs and Denny's and Olive Gardens across America, not earning enough in tips to survive, and that was before the pandemic. With the pandemic, about 6 million restaurant workers lost their jobs, and 60% of them couldn't get unemployment insurance because in most states they were told that their sub-minimum wage of $2 or $3 or $4 an hour was too low to meet the minimum threshold to qualify for benefits. That's outrageous and ridiculous, and it forced millions of workers to go back to work in a pandemic before they felt safe. And when they went back to work, they were asked to do more for less. They were asked to enforce social distancing and mask rules from the very same customers from whom they had to get tips at a time when tips are down 50 to 75%. And worst of all, we heard from literally thousands of women across the country that they're being asked to remove their masks so male customers can judge their looks and therefore their tips on that basis.
Whoa.
We've heard that so often from so many thousands of women that we know we're calling it masculine harassment because it's become so pervasive. And it means that earning a $2 wage has gone from a racial, economic, and gender injustice to becoming a matter of life and death that must be ended now. These workers need a full minimum wage so they're not dependent on male customers who say, I'll only tip you if you take off your mask so I can see how cute you are. That's got to go. It's a legacy of slavery. It's got to go. And these women relying on these tips has got to go. So we stand with everybody here to say ending this legacy of slavery and a $15 minimum wage for all, for fast food workers, for full service restaurant workers, for anybody who works in the United States of America is an immediate COVID relief issue and thus has to be part of this COVID bill. And to call for that, we are together with Reverend Barber and Reverend Liz and the Poor People's Campaign and SEIU holding an event on Monday, Monday, February 8th at noon Eastern, 12 o'clock Eastern, We'll be live, socially distanced and safe in Washington, D.C. on the National Mall. We'll be live and socially distanced in another 6 cities, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Denver, Arizona. If there are cities that would like to join us, we'd love to have you. You can join us either live or digitally by going to www.one-fairwage, ONEFAIR wage.org/Feb8, FEB8, because this event is happening next Monday, February 8th at noon. Again, you'd go to www.onefairwage, onefairwage.org/Feb8, FEB8. Please join us. We need everybody to turn out to show Congress members that there is a groundswell of support for $15 for all. And I want to invite my brother Damani, who's a tipped worker from New York, who can tell you just how hard it's been for tipped workers during this pandemic.
How's everyone doing? I really want to just thank right off the bat both the Reverends, Sir Barber and Lady Liz there, and we also have the Reverend, I think, Danielle in Montana, with that incredible story about that housing crisis that's happening there. I really thank you so much for sharing those stories. I can't echo enough how important it is that we all get on the same page. That's also part of having a wage that is communicated throughout all the states here that we're united in. My name is Damani Bernardo. I've worked in the service industry for a little more than 30 years. This pandemic has given me the opportunity to be able to really reflect on my past history in the restaurant industry and to be able to share with you stories of hitting what I say is not really a glass ceiling because I can't really see beyond the other edge. I've worked in the front of the house mainly. I've never worked with another man of color. I think that it references the standards which we've created for several hundreds and thousands of years, that we've created a system where we essentially, as people of color and women, support the ideals and wishes of white men. I myself consciously have always been against that. I now stand with my workers here in New York City, and I'm striking in restaurants and other low-income workers. The 2 women in West Virginia, I really want to thank you for sharing that story. And as we're here in New York City during a snowstorm, I always feel a little insulated because I'm in New York City. But that was such a great reminder to think about actually being on a mountain and being surrounded by snow and wind and having the heat, the house for my family and myself, and having to return to work. Pamela Garrison, that's an incredible story. And I think also really, it's really incredible for you to communicate that it's been a life of struggle. And I think that we have an opportunity to continue to erase that and to create opportunities so that we're in a level playing field and we have the opportunity to support our families. The lady who just spoke before about having worked at McDonald's, and her husband as well, as low-wage workers and suffering health crises and not having the ability to have any medical care or the ability to even save money for events like that. Again, back to Pamela, when you said you save the change so that you can roll it at the end of the week for transportation so you can get to work, I definitely recognize that. My mother worked as a postal worker until she retired, and we were always on public transportation. And I understand the idea of being able to recognize a coin and having to have it stretch as far as you need it to. Again, working here in the restaurant industry, I've fought and have been fired from every restaurant job that I've ever had. And I say that proudly now because I stood up for my rights or the rights of the workers that were around me that weren't able to communicate or didn't have the time to write a letter to the Division of Human Resources. Also, again, I want to thank you, the Poor People's Campaign, to invite me in on this Moral Monday. What a great way to start the week. What an incredible platform that you've created that allows us to easily go to your website and address the people that we need to continue to stay on the heels of. My fellow co-workers here, as we fight for one fair wage, we were down in Washington, D.C., on their heels, reminding the Biden administration that in this first 100 days, we're going to need you to stay accountable for the support that you showed through your campaign. And I think it's really incredible that we can all join one another and continue to push forward the narrative. As the barber said, I'm not so sure that there are too many politicians sitting around specifically deciding to continue to not support people. I think unconsciously they don't even realize the systems that they've created, but they inherently support them. And I think what's beautiful about it is that we realize where the weaks and the cracks are in this veneer that they've created. We know that we're stronger when we work together. We know that it is absolutely beyond time to get our fair justice and our fair pay. And it's something that we are going to, as Barbara said, let's double mask it. I'm in the laundromat. I'm doing a little bit of multitasking here, excuse me. But let's step out in the streets again and communicate with people so they can hear that chant as they're in their homes or in their cars, or, you know, we stop a little traffic and people are able to realize that people are out in the streets standing up for what they need. We're tired of struggling, and we want to communicate with workers throughout the nation to just keep lifting this forward. So, you know, I'm happy to be here with you. Again, I apologize that I'm always multitasking and I'm moving around this city. But I really want to thank you again for inviting me in on this and inviting me and encouraging the rest of the workers that allows me to communicate to my friends that are striking that we can go to your website so easily, put in our information and communicate with the workers that we put into office and the workers that are there supposed to represent us. So it's important that we also keep them on top of that. Thank you so much for letting me speak. And I encourage you all to continue to stay healthy, drink water, stay hydrated. Let's get through this pandemic. Let's continue to make noises out there so people see us and they hear us and they respect us. Again, to the low-income workers down there at McDonald's, I've always been ashamed of McDonald's, which is why I have problems eating there, because they make so much money and they have so much of a profit that they should be giving back to their workers. I think that's disgusting. I think it's immoral. And I stand with you as you get your wages up.
That's right. My brother, we thank you so much. And Saru, we thank you. And I want PPC, Poor People's Campaign, National Call for Moral Revival, to hear Liz and I as we say, this is what Moral Monday is about. It's about connecting. And so we're going to have Moral Monday anyway for 14 weeks, and then one fair wage was, and then 15 in the union. If we're saying protect us, respect us, and pay us, why not join forces? So you'll be able to go. It's going to be tri-sponsored, sponsored by SEIU, sponsored by One Fair Wage, sponsored by the Poor People's Campaign. We're going to talk during the week about expanding the states. People can come out, double mask, everything COVID protected. But we cannot be silent in this moment. We are not going to allow people to divide us and turn us against one another. Those days are over, and we're going to lead in that way. And so this is so important, this coming together. And guess what? When COVID fully releases us, we are going to have a mass poor people's assembly and poor people and low wage assembly, National Moral March on Washington, D.C., where tens and hundreds of thousands of us will gather. And guess what? We're building that even now as we're united. But in the meantime, next Monday, let's all join together. The time is going to be a little different, but join together. Now we got one more thing. In 68, in less than a few weeks apart, Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy were killed. What were they doing when they were killed? They were fighting for poor folk and with poor folk and with low wage folk. They were standing together. I got a call because, you know, in the Poor People's Campaign, we don't have politicians that are sitting elected officers come because we have to challenge everybody. But I got a call and we had a conversation with Joe Kennedy, the grandson of Robert Kennedy. And his simple question was, what can I do to help? And I started sharing with him. I said, now, you know, we're kind of rowdy group and we are pushing, you know, universal health care, and we're pushing 15 in the union and so forth. He said, I'm right there. What can you do? I said, well, you know, we said when we met with the domestic policy team that we wanted a White House level coming together in the White House with people like you on the call, sitting with the president, vice president, not people on your behalf, but people together, our advocates, our economists, our lawyers, our union brothers and sisters and leaders. But most of all, we said that in this movement, the goal is to change the narrative, put a face on these problems, whether it's in New York or West Virginia, and to build power. He said, what can I do? I'm ready. I said, we said, Liz and I met with him and talked, and Shally and other, and Rob and Roz, and we said, would you be willing to come on as a special senior advisor, specifically to make sure that White House conference happens? Would you be willing to use your post-Congress power to help make sure that happens in the White House and help us push this message out? He said one word: I'm ready. I'm ready, and it's time, and we need to pick up the spirit of those before us and bring them to life in this time. And so the last voice you hear today, will be former Congressperson Robert Kennedy from Massachusetts, who's now a special advisor to the Poor People's Campaign, particularly about making sure we get this White House convening with the president, vice president, and his domestic policy people, where poor and low wealth people are sitting in the White House telling their stories and also laying out their own demands and their own agenda and what must happen to change this country. So, Brother Robert, I can say that now. Brother Robert, will you come on and just share with us in your own way? There he is.
Reverend Dr. Bishop, or Dr. Barber, thank you. I am so grateful and honored, and you set the bar high, obviously, with that introduction. But if there's one thing that I have known from my time knowing you and everybody associated with the Poor People's Campaign is you're going to get to yes at some point. It might as well be now, because you're just not going to stop. And it's going to be an awful lot easier on everybody if you just cut to the chase and agree. And I think it is a testament to the leadership of the individuals pictured here, but most powerfully the people that you all represent, and the thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of other voices and pairs of feet that continue this work day after day in every single community across our country and around the world. And so Reverend Barber, Reverend Liz, and many other reverends on this call, Saru, great to see you again, Rob, and so many others. I'm honored to be with you. I'm honored to try to contribute to your efforts in any small way that I can. I'm incredibly proud of the work that my grandfather did alongside many of you at that time and over the course of his life. And again, however I can contribute to this going forward, I want to. Mary Kay, wonderful to be with you as well. I am cognizant of the fact that time is running a little long and I am last, which means the only thing standing between you all and a song and freedom from another Zoom is me. So let me be brief on this, but echoing what many have already said, I was struck, as I'm sure Reverend Barber, you were this morning, and others, in reading some of the coverage of the latest COVID package and the calculations that are taking place in Washington about what's going to get passed and what's feasible and all the rest of it. And when it came to the discussion of a $15 minimum wage, where one of my Republican former colleagues said, that doesn't seem to be so related to the COVID crisis, so that should get cut out. This stemming from the fact that for the past year, you cannot find a single politician across this country at any level that has done nothing but praise essential workers, call them essential, designate them essential, show up for those photo ops, and then turn around and then try to deny them some aspect of the basic dignity that actually means to be essential. It is the height of hypocrisy to be able to stand up and say, hey, we need you to drive our buses. We need you to care for our children. We need you to create the basic structures of society, pick up our trash. We need you to teach in our schools. We need you to do what we need you to do so that our society can function. We're going to claim that you're essential, but we're not going to pay you a living wage. We're not even going to give you the foundation for which you can start. And so this moment, not only is this a opportunity to try to address that moral failing that we have been wrestling with now for so long, but Dr. Barber and Reverend Liz, what I am so struck by your work and that of so many others on this call, on this forum, is the ambition and the faith that you put in the American public to be able to say, we can do this. We deserve this. We will fight for this. And to know that we can do this, and the only thing blocking it is political will. And that if that's the case, we are going to win. It's just a question as to whether you're going to agree early or late. But like water on a stone, we're going to get there. And I'm so honored to play a small part in it. Reverend Dr. Barber, thank you. All of you, thank you for your work. Honored to call myself an ally and an advocate in your efforts, and look forward to the challenges ahead.
Thank you so much. And I misrepresented thinking about the spirit of your grandfather, but I know it's Joe.
I'll take that any time. You can call me whatever you want. That works.
And, we got a lot of conversations. We're going to make this happen. You're right. We're going to say yes. I mean, we come from the tradition of people who eventually get to yes. Yes is a must. And when America says yes, guess what? She's going to be glad she said a yes. Republicans, Democrats, everybody. is going to be glad. Right now, we're just dealing with the people that think they have to say no because they've been saying no so long. But we've got to change this narrative and be a power. Now, there is one thing, Brother Kennedy, that you have to do to be bona fide with the PPC, Poor People's Campaign National Call for Moral Revival. You have to be able to say two things. Somebody's been hurting our brothers and sisters far too long, and we won't be silent anymore. So you have to say that with us. You have to say that on camera. Somebody has been hurting.
Somebody has been hurting
our brothers and
sisters for far too
long, and we won't be silent anymore.
And we won't be silent anymore.
And wherever you are in the country now, you're going to hear people, they're going to come up to you and they're going to say, forward together. And you have to be able to say, not one step back. So forward together.
Not one step back.
He got it, Liz. All right, y'all. It's a done deal. I'm sorry. You marked now. We are glad the fight is on, y'all. And we're gonna give you credit the first two times, and the third time we're gonna say the Lord told us. You might as well say yes now. It would be easier to just say yes now. We will give you credit the first two times, and after that, we said the Lord told us to tell the country. You might as well say yes now. It would be so much easier. Listen, this has been a powerful first of 14 Moral Mondays, National Moral Mondays. We got thousands and thousands of people on. The calls are going all over the country. We will be back here next Monday, different time. Look out where we join together with One Fair Wage, SEIU, Poor People's Campaign, all over the country, in DC, coming out, doubling up, because we're going to make our voices heard. What is real hope? What is real hope? What is real love? Real hope and real love does not make you apathetic. It actually puts something inside of you and causes you to move and believe that in coming together and with our efforts, we can in fact change things. And that is where our joy comes from, because the joy we have, the world didn't give it and the world cannot take it away. And our joy is so rooted in justice and love for everybody, regardless of their race, their color, their creed, or even their ability or their disability or their sexual orientation. Rob, you have it. Take us out. Closing song. Don't Stop Calling. Love you all. And we say it. Let's hear it. Let's make it rumble all over. You can be on mute, but we can say it where you are. Forward together.
Forward together.
One step back.
Take care. We'll see you next week.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. Please be sure to tune back in next week at 12 noon for a joint broadcast coming live from DC and from across the country. All the information for how to join those local events will be forthcoming. We thank all the participants today in this Moral Monday that we're launching in this new time period, in this new political moment that we find ourselves. We need Moral Mondays now more than ever to push these issues over the finish line. So please keep calling all week. And if you have any trouble, just try again. And we'll be back next week at 12 noon. And we're going to roll out with a song from a pre-recorded song to lift our spirits as we move through this week and try to finally get 15 and a union.
know is work. All I going. All I know is I ain't going. All I know is work. I ain't going. All I know is hold up. Hold up.